Hello everyone and welcome to Best Side Cycling. In this video, I'm going to talk to you all about Seattle to Portland, the most common questions, how to prepare, whether I should do 1 day or 2 day, and really all the tips that I wish I had when I was first preparing to do this ride. So lots to talk about, but also I am an ambassador for the ride this year. So down below there will be a discount link if you haven't signed up yet. So definitely make use of that. Get your friends to join as well. It makes it a lot easier. But anyway, let's get right into it. There's gonna be a lot of talking in this video, but first I want to start with introductions. Sort of what's my experience with STP, preparing it, things like that. I think the type of advice that you get really comes from the person's background and how they got into it and things like that. So my first Seattle Portland was 2018. It might surprise some of you, but I'm actually fairly new to cycling. Just the year before, in my young adulthood, was when I first ever really started riding a bike. I got a hybrid one riding around. I don't come from an athletic background at all. I just sit at desks like most Seattleites do. But it really enamored me when I was able to spend time outside, decided to get my first road bike, and then my coworker sort of nudged me into doing Seattle to Portland, sort of how most people sort of get into signing up at first. So yeah, I took some time. Didn't ride nearly that as much as I should, but yeah, I did get through the ride. I did it in 2 days, and I averaged only about like 12.5 miles per hour. It took me 17 miles total, and I'd say this was easily my hardest Seattle to Portland. So I'll go more on that later, but I really want to get a point that I started from scratch, really needing to learn all there was to cycling, so sort of a step along the way. And definitely wasn't the type of person that could just get up, get a bike, and do the 1 day ride. There was no chance. But since then, I've ridden a lot more, especially during the pandemic, and then sort of rearing into 2021, 2022. Yeah, I became more of a daily rider, and since then I've done 2 1 days, each of them here averaging about like 19 miles per hour, so that's like 10 and a half hours, and then this one 10 hours and 40 minutes. So much more comfortable experience with this, but you can see that I definitely went to the full journey of just a total beginner and now being able to confidently do the 1 day rider. So this is sort of the perspective that you'll be getting some of these tips from. But anyway, in terms of the things we'll cover, yeah, I wanted to first talk to the 2 day riders, things I really want you to think about, and things that you want to keep in mind when preparing for STP. And then we'll talk about 1 day versus 2 day, which one you should do. And then lastly, maybe some additional tips for 1 day riders and whatever else in the end. So feel free to use the chapters because I don't know how long I'll be rambling about, but hopefully all of this will be super useful. So let me know in advance. But anyway, talking to the 2 day riders first in terms of how to prepare, I'd say the most important thing about being a 2 day rider is being able to stay on your bike for a really long time to keep pedaling. That might sound very obvious, but really comfort is actually the most paramount thing to really handle and control, because if you're not comfortable, it's just not gonna be a great time. You are not time pressured in the 2 day experience like you are in the 1 day. So really, there's a lot of aspects to that. But for me, as you saw from my first 2 day, I was on my bike for 17 hours across the 2 days, and I definitely made it there. But definitely, I probably wasn't as comfortable as I could be. And things that you'll need to do is definitely to get that comfort is really just through experience and trying things out and just getting on your bike and riding and training your sit bones and things like that. But key things to call out there, one is your bike fit. It doesn't necessarily mean I need you every single one you get a bike fitter. They really do help, but these are things that you can tweak over time and sort of try and then see how it's going, like how things feel after 20 miles. If things consistently feel really bad after 20 miles, then maybe you really need to change things up. Just looking out for those things and those sign cues in terms of your usual contact points, your knees, and things that might be uncomfortable. Next is definitely around the saddle. There's no helping it. A 2 day riders for the most part is definitely gonna a lot of common complaints is that your rear end hurts more than any other body part, and that definitely resonated true with me. So definitely in terms of ways to help with that, I would say definitely try experimenting and figuring out maybe using like a chamois. This was definitely a big change for me. It really helps. Don't wear underwear underneath these because it will chafe. That is a pro tip right there. And then in terms of chafing as well, you can get stuff like chamois cream that will help you out. So let me try these. Definitely start working with that. And then as you sort of build up some miles, these will really help. But speaking of mileage, I'd say in terms of a good ballpark you would want to have. And honestly, everything I say here is just my opinion. So definitely if you are just doing heavy exercise for the first time or anything else, please consult your doctor. These are just my sort of random thoughts, but I'd say a good goal for a 2-day rider to have to be confident that they'll at least have an okay time or decent time during this event is being able to do 80 miles in one day and still feeling decent afterwards. This encapsulates a lot of things. But yeah, I'd say for a lot of you, and even for me back then, I probably was pretty underprepared. But you'll still manage to finish, I'm guarantee it, but you just might not have the best of time if you're not sort of trained up as well. But if you're overtrained, then basically you just have a better experience and you're less focused about can I make it there, and you're just riding along. So you sort of want to be more in that camp. But actually, I have a lot of faith in you, and you'll be actually very, very surprised how far a human can go when you're just sort of pedaling along, not like at a sort of breakneck pace where you're just out of breath the whole time. That's not what it looks like. I mean, there's a few hills that will put you out of breath, but for the most part, you're just pedaling there like a little engine that could, and you'll make it really, really far. But you do want to give your best chances of having a comfortable ride. So yeah, that's what I would work your way up towards. And then the other two things I would sort of call out there is around nutrition. Something I didn't realize is how important eating is to cycling. I mean, people know to sort of drink water and stay hydrated, but eating is not something you think about when it comes to sort of riding your bike, but it is very key still. You're still expending a ton of energy, so you do need to find ways to, just keep that fuel up. So on your sort of training rides that you're doing now, just try out different foods. I mean, the most common ones being sort of the Cliff Bars type of thing. See if that works for you. But there are a lot of options that you can find online. But the key is with all of this is that the experience of riding long rides is something that you don't forget. So since then, building my way up and understanding what works specifically for me, it just helps every year to increase my comfort, and that makes these longer rides easier and easier. So really, experience is going to be the best teacher for anybody when it comes to doing something like a 2-day, 200-mile ride for the first time. So just encourage you, to get out on your bike and then start building up those miles. And then the last thing I'd say that would be pretty helpful for 2-day riders, especially if this is your first time, is just getting some experience with group riding. Group riding can feel pretty daunting. I'd say because there isn't as much of a time pressure for 2-day riders. I mean, usually you'll have to do 100 to sort of at least 100 miles on the first day. If you're starting at sort of 5:30 to 7, you really have a lot of time for the most part. So yeah, I would say with that, you aren't required to draft or pace line. It's just more so just being able to stay safe. So maybe finding a Cascade free group ride would be a great way to do this, or finding some friends that you can ride together with. But I'd say the top key tips here is really just to stay predictable, maintain your line. Don't just veer off or suddenly stop for the middle of nowhere, or get used to your clipless pedals if you're doing that. And then also to just maintain space with other riders. It's okay to ride with other people that you don't know, but usually I think, especially for 2-day riders where you don't know where everybody's experience is, you would want to give them a heads up at the very least, or just sort of suss it out. But yeah, those are all pretty good things I would say to know, and then definitely just really find ways to get comfortable on the bike. try to get to a point where you can do 80 miles in one day without, but still feeling like decent at the end. I mean, you'll be sore, but if you're feeling like okay, that's a really good sort of marker. And then, yeah, all those other things. So with that, I want to talk about 1 day versus 2 day. What's the difference and what's the bar to do it? But if you caught wind of what I said earlier, I said that my 2 day ride was probably my hardest ride that I did. And that's simply because the more time you are on your bike, it's just the more wearing it'll be on your body. There's no comparison to that. So I mean, I was 17 hours on here versus like around 11 hours for these. So just the wear on your body, and something that I learned about sort of cycling that sort of blew my mind at first, but it's pretty obvious once you think about it, is that if you can pedal harder, then there'll be a lot less pressure on your rear end and things just being a lot more comfortable, because you do have 3 contact points: your legs, your butt, and then your hands. So if the more the legs take, the less that the other 2 are necessary. I don't know why, but that initial revelation to me just made a lot more sense how some people were able to be so comfortable on the bike. But anyway, all that to really say is that the bar for the 1 day, I would say, is that if you could do 16 miles an hour by yourself on the flats, then you have a pretty good chance of being able to do STP 1 day at a reasonable time, because for 1 day, that's the whole difference, right? It's just a difference in time. You're just not going to have nearly as much space to just take a long break as you want. There is a sort of a minimum speed you want to go. I mean, the hard deadline is around 9 p.m., but I don't think anyone wants to ride all the way into 9 p.m. You sort of want to be in that middle range, probably around like 13 hours or so. So that would be a lot better. That's sort of what I would say in terms of that. So in terms of the type of experience that you want as well, I mean, I've only done 2 day once, but it's also the ride that I feel like I experienced the most camaraderie sort of round, and I've seen the most sort of fun bikes and a lot more of a chill vibe. STP, I'll be very frank, it's not as much as like a party as like maybe Ragbri, where it's like everyone's just sort of like partying the whole time. But I would say that the 2 day ride still has a lot more variety. You'll see sort of all different riders, families, and all that. So I think that was sort of an enjoyable experience. Versus 1 day rider, it's going to be a lot more cookie cutter. So people on their road bikes just try and make it in time. So yeah, so those are the things you can sort of consider in terms of whether you should do 1 day or 2 day, or work towards 1 day or 2 day. But at least for me, for my first time doing 2 day, it was very, very obvious that I would not be close in fitness to be able to do that. So maybe if it's your very first year, you can also just suss out and see what the 2 day is like first before committing to the 1 day. So now in terms of the 1 day, things that I would say are good things to train and work towards. I think a super common bar that people have is whether you could do the flying wheels ride 100 miles and I think about like 3,000, 4,000 feet in early June. It's a really good one because it's decently hillier than Seattle to Portland. And if you can do that also pretty comfortably, then usually people are able to do the full 1 day as well. I know this doesn't really always work out, but a sort of training method I like to use is if you can do sort of a certain distance on the game day when all the adrenaline is coming through and there's so many people to draft off of, whatever, you usually can manage sort of twice that distance. So if you've done a 50-mile ride, maybe you can do 100, but yeah, I don't think that's foolproof, but that's something that has kept around. So the flying wheels ride is a good one to really test if you are 1 day ready, and that's in June. And then in terms of specific 1 day advice, in terms of training, yeah, I'll say that comfort piece and everything I said from the 2-day riders is still important here, so you can watch that again and then see what I said there. But the comfort piece, I would say, yeah, becomes a little less important because you're going to finish in one day, and just because I said the harder you pedal, probably the less pressure is there. You still need to get your bike foot figured out. That matters a lot. But in terms of what a lot of the 2-day riders have to go through in terms of just saddle discomfort is not going to be as huge a thing. But the next two do come more important, and one is nutrition. So a really common sort of myth about cycling maybe is that that if you're more fit, you're just more efficient with your energy and you can go way farther and faster. But I think they've sort of found out that's not quite the case. When you're fit, what it means is that you're able to expend a lot more energy and use it. So basically, you're able to go faster. But that faster has a cost of taking more fuel. So fuel and nutrition will be even more important for the 1-day riders, is what I'm saying. Basically, you will need to figure it out. And I think for the 1-day riders, they usually have more experience in this, so maybe evolving to trying to use gels or different other things that are available, or just whatever ways that works to get your carbs in. But definitely for the 1-day riders, I'll say you want to be fueling very regularly, at least once an hour with some type of carbohydrates. And that's something for you to really figure out in terms of what works best for you. And especially if it's hot out, you'll also need a lot of electrolytes as well. So yeah, definitely that's all part of the training and part of like whether the 100 miles, the flying wheels feels comfortable or something similar. It's all sort of baked in there together. And then the next thing I'd say in terms of preparing, and something that would really, really help in terms of 1-day riders is definitely learning to ride in a group and learning how to draft off other people. It's really much better if you just have your own group that you can rely on. Even just similarly strength people, you'll get there way faster. There's like 0% chance, and not even close, that I would be able to do a ride like Seattle-Portland at 19 miles per hour by myself. The reason why I was able to do that is because I had sort of riders in front of me to draft off of. So that is sort of a hidden pro tip about 1 day, and doing such a long ride that's flat. You save an enormous amount of energy when you're even behind one other cyclist, just by the amount of them blocking the wind resistance. So that's something you sort of in your training sort of want to get in your program. Just learning to ride with other people, getting comfortable getting on people's wheels. But as I said before, you do not want to just hop on random people's wheels on the event day because you don't know what experience people have and what they're comfortable with. It's always good to make sure to ask and then to verify before doing anything like that. But it helps a lot more actually if you just have your own group, because more than just the physical support, the mental knowing that you're in this together, that you're with other people, helps a lot. So that's sort of the things I'll say. Not super duper detailed, but yeah, for both 1-day and 2-day riders, the best training, of course, is to just get miles on your bike and start figuring out and answering some of these questions and get some experience there. So hopefully that was sort of helpful, but let me know in the comments below if you have any specific questions about preparing and training and whether you're ready or not, and I hopefully can get to you. But I wanted to get this video out as soon as I can because it is now April and it's time to ride, time to train. So hopefully all you guys do that. If you enjoyed that, please roll the like button and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video. And I know I haven't explicitly said my Seattle to Portland plans, but they're coming out very soon and you'll be surprised to know what they are. It's of course not good. I'm not riding my road bike, so maybe you have a little guess about what my plans might be. And I'll see you all in the next video.